Hello friends, today we will discuss about the third event of sexual reproduction, that is the post-fertilization events. As I had told earlier also, these events will take place after the fertilization process, that is, after the fusion of the male and female gamete has been completed. Now, if you see the post-fertilization events, there will be two major events that will take place during the post-fertilization events. One is the zygote formation and the second is embryogenesis. So we will first discuss about the first process of the post-fertilization event, that is zygote formation. Now, when you talk about zygote, I told earlier also, as I told for gametes are always haploid. Similarly, you need to keep in mind that zygote is always diploid. Whether the body of the organism is haploid or diploid, but the zygote that is formed as a result of the fertilization event is always diploid. In case if the fertilization is external, then the zygote will be formed in the external medium. Most of the times, as we had discussed, it will be water. And if it is internal fertilization taking place, then the zygote is formed inside the female body. Okay, so when external fertilization is taking place, the zygote will be formed in the external medium, which is mostly water. And if the fertilization is internal, the zygote will be formed inside the female body. Let us now discuss that depending upon the life cycle that the organisms follow, what kind of cell division will the zygote undergo. So if we take different types of example, let us first see in case of algae and fungi. In case of algae and fungi, when you see the zygote, as soon as the zygote is being formed, the zygote undergoes a resting phase. And during this resting phase, it is going to form a thick wall around itself. What will be the function of this thick wall? It prevents the zygote from desiccation, that is drying, and any kind of external damage. It can be a physical damage or it can be a damage created because of the pressure from the environment. So these zygote, again, after the resting phase is completed, whenever favorable conditions will return, or you can say after the resting phase is completed, then and only then the zygote germinates. And when the zygote germinates, new algae or fungi will be formed. Fine. So you have studied in 11th standard that algae and fungi generally they follow which type of life cycle? Haplontic life cycle. Algae and fungi they follow the haplontic life cycle. So when I say that it is following haplontic life cycle, one thing is clear that the zygote which is formed is going to divide by meiosis to form the haploid spores of the algae and fungi. Yes, because the zygote is diploid, and if the organism is following the haplontic life cycle, the spores which will be formed will be haploid. So to convert a diploid cell into a haploid structure, which type of cell division does take place? Meiosis. So this is when the life cycle is haplontic. Coming to the second example, if you see animals follow the diplontic life cycle. Right? So when organisms, they follow diplontic life cycle. The zygote, which is a diploid structure, will divide by mitosis, which is the type of equational division, to form the embryo, which is again each cell of the embryo also will be diploid. And these embryos is going to later on divide and form differentiate, or you can say specialized tissues and organs to give rise to the new individual. Okay. What about plants? Plants have haplodiplontic life cycle. That means certain stage of the plant will be haploid in nature and certain stage will be diploid. So in that case, again, the zygote initially, again a diploid structure, is going to divide by mitosis to form the embryo. The embryo by continuous cell division is going to give rise to the diploid stage of the plant, which is called as the sporophyte stage. Whenever plant enters into the sporophyte stage, it is going to form structures which are called as the sporangia. Again, the sporangia is also diploid. These sporangia are the structures which gives rise to the spores of the plant. And here, the spores are haploid. So the type of cell division where the sporangiate cell will be dividing to form the spores will be meiosis. These spores will give rise to the next stage of the plant, that is the gametophyte stage. 11th you have studied plants show alternation of generation. That means it is going to have sporophyte stage as well as the gametophyte stage. So the gametophyte stage again will be haploid, and these gametophyte stage ultimately gives rise to the gametes. And these gametes again are always haploid. These gametes again will fuse together to result into the formation of the zygote. So in this way, the cycle is completed. What is the link that ensures that the species is continued? Okay, so you can see that if zygote formation does not take place, there will be no continuation of species. Though gamete formation is taking place, those gametes should fuse to form the zygote. So if zygote formation does not occur, there will be no continuity of species. So let us move on now to the next stage of the post-embryonic event, post-fertilization event, that is embryogenesis. Now, the term embryogenesis itself says that formation of embryo takes place. Genesis is formation and embryo. So, embryo formation takes place. Now, how does embryo formation take place? Is nothing but the zygote, which is a single cell, it has to form a multicellular organism. So, these zygote is will undergo certain changes. So, during embryogenesis, what you can say is that the zygote, it undergoes two types of processes. One is cell division and the other is cell differentiation. Now, as a result of the cell division process, what will happen is the number of cells will increase. Yes, cell division, that means what we have studied earlier, either mitosis or meiosis will take place depending upon the life cycle of the organism. So if cell division is taking place, ultimately what will happen, the number of cells will increase, whereas the new cells, as the number of cells increases, the new cells which are formed, they will undergo a process called as differentiation. And when differentiation of cell takes place, you can say tissue and organ formation occurs. So cell differentiation is a process which leads to specialized tissue and organ formation, whereas cell division helps in increasing the number of cell of the multicellular organism. Okay, again, now when embryogenesis is taking place, that means when embryo formation takes place, that embryo undergoes certain developmental stages throughout its growth phase. So now after the complete embryo has developed, that embryo has to be released outside the body of the female if it is internal fertilization. And if it is external fertilization, the embryo of course will be formed outside. But then if internal fertilization has taken place, the new offspring which is going to be formed, or the new next generation which is coming, it can either be, depending upon the zygote development, how it is taking place, and what kind of, in which manner the offspring is going to be released out. Depending upon that, there can be two types of organisms. You can say oviparous organisms and viviparous organisms. Oviparous organisms are those which lay eggs. Organisms which lay fertilized or unfertilized eggs. Okay, now example of organisms which are going to lay eggs mainly include reptiles and birds. In case of reptiles and birds, where they lay the fertilized eggs, remember, reptiles and birds, they lay fertilized eggs. These fertilized eggs, they are actually covered by a calcareous shell. You know, right? The eggs which are available in the market, or when you see the eggs of birds generally, or any kind of reptile, generally eggs are covered by a calcareous shell which is made of calcium carbonate. That is providing protection to the yolk or the nutritive material that is present inside. So, and when these eggs, they are incubated by the parent. That means the parent, after laying the eggs, is going to provide the heat. That period is called as the incubation period. Once the incubation is being provided, the eggs will hatch out. So those organisms which lay eggs, they are called as oviparous organisms. They may lay either fertilized or unfertilized eggs. Example of organisms include reptiles and birds. Viviparous organisms are those organisms which give birth to young ones. Okay, so since it is giving birth to young one, the young one develops inside the female body. Where inside the female body, what will happen? Growth takes place, and after certain growth has taken place within the offspring is delivered out. Now, the advantage of that the viviparous offspring face is that in case of viviparous organisms, or wherein the organisms they give birth to the young ones are always being nurtured and protected by the parents. Whereas that is not going to happen in the oviparous organisms. Okay, oviparous organisms, once the eggs are hatched out, the young ones, they may or may not be taken care. They are more prone to predators as compared to the viviparous organisms, because these viviparous organisms, they will take care of the child up to a certain age, up to they reach the adulthood stage. And by the time they reach the adulthood stage, what happens is, or the young ones, they are mature enough to fight against the predators or the consequences that come in the environment. So this is about animals. When we talk about animals, In case of embryogenesis, there will be of two types, oviparous and viviparous. Let us now see what happens to the zygote in case of the flowering plants. Flowering plants, again, as I said, they also reproduce sexually. So when they are reproducing sexually, there will be formation of zygote taking place. And of course, the zygote which is formed in the flowering plants is also going to form the embryo. But in case of the flowering plants, there are certain changes which take place in the structure of the flower. Now, in case of flowering plants, the first and foremost change which occurs is that after fertilization, sepals, petals, and stamen fall off from the flower. What just remains attached to the flower is nothing but the carpel, or you can say the female reproductive part. Rest all the structures, the sepals, petals and the stamen, that is the male reproductive part, will get detached. Okay, you can say after fertilization, or you can say after the zygote formation has taken place. Not immediately after fertilization, but after the zygote formation has been completed, the sepals, petals and the stamen will fall off. Again, there are certain plants in which you will find exception, like chili, brinjal, in which you can clearly see that the sepal still remains attached to the plant, and tomato. Okay, so these are examples of certain plants in which you will see that the stamens still remain attached to the fruit after the formation of the zygote. Okay, now once these has taken place, the zygote formation has occurred, the fertilization process has taken place, there will be certain changes which are going to take place in the reproductive part, that is the carpel that is still attached to the flower, you can say the thalamus. The ovule which is present in the flower is going to develop into the seed. The ovary develops into the fruit. Of course, there will be zygote inside which has formed. So the zygote is going to develop into the embryo. Zygote develops into embryo, ovule into seed, ovary into fruit, and the ovary wall is going to develop into the fruit wall, which can also be called as the pericarp. It is a protective layer which is going to protect the inner fleshy tissue of the fruit. Once these all structures have been formed, the next stage is for formation of the new organism, the new plant. So for that case, the seeds which are formed in the plants, they are generally dispersed. So how does new plant formation takes place is dispersal of seeds take place either by wind or some other type of biotic agent, and these dispersed seeds will be taken to some other place where they will germinate. And when germination is taking place, once the seed germinates, it is going to develop into a new plant. So this is how embryogenesis can be discussed in case of flowering plants. In case of animals, embryogenesis can be discussed studying about the oviparous and viviparous organisms. In flowering plants, this can be discussed by the type of structures that are formed from the flower. This is all about reproduction in different types of organisms. Next, we'll be starting with the next chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Thank you.